Okay, so someone asked me some great questions about reality shifting into Draco Malfoy. And if you didn't see my live video on that, basically in the live section of my channel, you'll see it. It's just, me asking, like, if I wanted to shift into Draco Malfoy, how would I do it? And I came to the conclusion that I personally would either, I would probably do some dream work after doing some purposeful imagination based path working. Um, and I want to read out the question now because that's where this video is for. So, um, Mickey Mouse, also, if that's a reference to the Art Spiegelman comic, then awesome. Um, I'm confused. Do you believe the reality shifting is dreaming, or do you think it's just as real as this reality? So there's kind of several parts of this question. I want to address it in those pieces. So first of all, do I believe reality shifting is dreaming? And I want to go over two things. One, things I know, and two, things I believe. Because I'm doing experiments here. And so what I know is very important for what it is that I'm experimenting on. What I believe may not be important here. Because for me, a belief is something that can be changed. Whereas knowledge is something that is updated whenever you get new knowledge. Maybe you can have knowledge that is wrong or false, and then whenever you find out what's true, you're like, okay, now I update that. And your memory has the right knowledge after that. So, there's things I know here, and there's also things that I either believe or I've theorized and conjectured. And theorized and conjectured actually goes more under logic than it goes under belief. And I'll go a little bit more into belief later because I think a lot of people immediately wonder whenever they know that somebody is going to try to shift into Draco Malfoy. The first thing they think is, do they believe that's really possible? Do they believe that Draco Malfoy is really out there? Is it just because they really believe that really hard that they're doing this? And for me, it's not because I have the strong belief that Draco Malfoy is out there. It's because I think it's an interesting question. And I'm in a position to maybe experiment on it in the future. So I've been basically using this as a thought experiment. So, things I know. Stuff about psychology and physics, and what's possible within them. I have a degree in fine arts, so I'm going to settle any questions ahead of time of whether it is I'm a physicist or I'm a psychologist. I have studied both physics and psychology pretty well. Either I've had college level courses on them, or I've done study in, the times that I've been out of college, because you have a whole life after college. And then I also know what either discipline has no conclusions on yet. For instance, it's in my known knowledge that no one has proven what a dream actually is and why it is that we get the input that we get during dreams. There are theories. There are pieces of data that can not really prove, but back up certain theories. But as of yet, there's not really a whole lot that we can prove when it comes to why dreams do what they do, and whether or not the imagery we're getting is significant on another level of reality. So when it comes to things that we know, I also know things that no one knows. That isn't to say that I keep all of my experimentation in this realm of stuff that no one could ever prove or disprove. Quite honestly, right now, I don't have a whole lot of experimentation that I can do on reality with, like, a physics beam. There's not a lot of particle physics that I can do over in my house right now, nor a lot of particle physics that I should do. So I would prefer to do dream work right now. It seems pretty expedient, which, by the way, I want to also talk about how I know how to alter reality. Altering your own reality is pretty easy. There are known methods of doing this, and some of them happen whenever we just go to sleep each night. So what I do know is how to alter my own reality in a way that seems like a reality shift, that could be conducive to the mental state of perceiving a reality shift. Now, do I know how to alter my own reality in a way that is a reality shift? I do not know that. I do not have that proven beyond, like, in a way that could be defined in any way. I have not done a whole lot of work with reality shifting in this particular um, field, as it were. I have experienced a lot of dream stuff. I have had a lot of altered reality experiences, but I've never purposely gone down the reality shifting path to explore what it is possible. Um, and so right here is where I'm pretty much open to anything and just trying to gather data. I think the Draco Malfoy question is very interesting and fun to explore. So let's kind of move forward. Um, there's different ways to alter your reality, and I feel that the quickest and easiest way is to dream. But the other ways to alter your reality, there's psychosis, dementia, paranoia, trance, hypnosis, drug effects. Some of these just happen to you. Some of them you can actually cause to happen, and some actual rituals that people do, whether religious or spiritual or magical, are actually meant to bring on altered states of being, and sometimes they are paranoia and psychosis. Those are ways in which you can see things that are not physically in front of you. And so those might be convenient for looking into another reality. The government has done this research and experimentation, and I think still does it from time to time. That's how Timothy Leary, was starting to make his whole career with the LSD experiments, and then the government decided to stop funding that. So like all of this has actually been explored pretty well. I personally feel it would be better to work with dreams than with mind altering drugs, because any of that kind of work, even if it's just hypnosis to feel the effects of LSD without taking it, you're going to go through a lot of your brain will go through a lot of different chemistry. Your body will be processing that chemistry. That is going to take a lot out of you. To be able to go through a reality shifting state while not sleeping is probably going to make your body burn through a lot of energy, and you're going to need some kind of recovery time afterward, which ironically you will sleep. You will need to sleep to recover from your druggy experience. And if you sleep, you're going to probably dream. So you see where I'm going here? You end up asleep anyway. Why not just go straight there? So this is more when it comes to the dream stuff. When I choose dreams, or I choose imagination, or I choose any other kinds of mind alteration, if I chose hypnosis, for instance, that would be my choice of a tool. Now, that's how I experience reality or a different reality. That's this the method of exploration. I don't really equate that with reality. It's just an experience, or a means of experiencing. So I want to talk about belief. I'm actually, at this point, I'd call myself somewhere between agnostic and vaguely spiritual, but not with an actual religion. I have a personal spirituality system that I practice with my husband that kind of shifts over time depending on what it is that we're experiencing. And so there's not a core set of religious tenets that I actually have to defend in my mind, or have to defend psychologically. I don't really have to defend that there is a God and that he created all things and guided evolution towards a certain way, because that's not a belief that I have in my own belief system. I don't really have a very rigid belief system. I'm mostly just an observer to this reality, is how I feel. So I learned a model from Robert Anton Wilson where one's view of reality is like a grid or a tunnel. Basically, you're in this tunnel, and when you're in that tunnel, that's how you experience reality. Someone else may be experiencing a completely different tunnel of reality, and so you two may feel like you experience completely different realities, but in fact, you're in the same physical reality, you're just in two different thought tunnels, and that can change all of your perceptions. So, for instance, from a conservative tunnel, one would see liberal values differently than a liberal sees their values from their own liberal tunnel. From a psychological tunnel from a psychological perspective, one sees the reality of a physicist differently than a physicist would see their own reality from a physicist's perspective. So being able to switch tunnels or filters or grids is actually one of the ways to gain perspective on the world. I often will look at things from a psychological discipline point of view, and then I'll switch gears and look at it from a physicist discipline point of view. And contrasting those two realities or those two views on reality helps me gain a better sense of the overall reality that we're all experiencing at the same time, which is very difficult to actually measure in a way that people consider to be scientific. Like, surprisingly difficult to measure everyone's conception of reality all at once. In a sense, I think that's why we had Twitter. So, do I believe Draco Malfoy exists in another reality? I think this is the big question, because I think that a lot of people, whenever they look at anyone who's deciding to do the Draco Malfoy reality shifting thing, or talking about the Draco Malfoy reality shifting thing, first thing they want to know is, do you actually believe that? And that's an interesting question, because scientifically it shouldn't matter. Science is about proving through logic whether or not something is likely to be true. Sometimes you're going to be dealing with percentages instead of either or, by the way. If you look enough into physics, you'll understand just how much things are about probably likely versus definitely likely. They're about probabilities. So because of that, I'm pretty open towards a lot of different possibilities, but I want to talk about how Draco Malfoy could exist in another reality. I'm just going to say Draco. I don't know him on a personal level, but I'm tired of saying his whole dang name. So, I am willing to entertain that something is happening that is more than just subconscious suggestion that dreams interpret into an immersive experience. Like, a lot of people would probably assume that someone having a reality shifting experience of Draco Malfoy is just imagining what it would be like to be Draco Malfoy, and that's all that's happening. There's not a physical person somewhere having an experience that is the same experience as the experience you're having as Draco Malfoy. Now, I think there could be many explanations for why people are able to have dreams as Draco Malfoy, and they actually feel like a reality happened. And I think there are possibly experiences that someone else in reality actually lived. That there is a person somewhere who is alive in some reality who had an experience analogous to the reality shift that the shifter experienced. And what I want to point out is, I think that there's a lot of ways that someone could have an experience for a short amount of time that they perceive certain things and then come to the conclusion that they had the experience of being Draco Malfoy, and that could have actually happened. Not because someone was walking around having the thought, I'm Draco Malfoy, being Draco Malfoy all the time. Look at me doing Draco Malfoy things. That's not what happens in anyone's head. People rarely think in their thoughts, I am me doing me things all the time, being me. They're usually thinking about whatever it is that they're obsessed with at the moment. So, like, if one were to have an experience that they interpret as Draco Malfoy, they probably never actually had a moment where they thought, I, me, am Draco Malfoy. Instead, they would be, like, having tea with the assumption that this is how Draco Malfoy has tea. But what if you're just dreaming inside an aristocrat who is having tea in a way that Draco Malfoy would have it? The Harry Potter universe in particular, I think, is very susceptible to this kind of error, because witches and wizards in Harry Potter are basically interchangeable with people from, like, the 1900s or even the 1960s. Like, they dress really boringly in the movies, so they could be from, like, the 80s. But, like, in the books, they're described as, like, just kind of wearing whatever found vintage clothing from whatever era put together without any actual regard as to whether the eras match. So they're just like kind of dressed like hodgepodge time travelers. So you could be dreaming and co-experiencing reality with someone from the past, and you could be interpreting that very easily as Draco Malfoy, especially if it's from an aristocratic family. Um, Sometimes I theorize that maybe these people are just like dreaming in young Hitler. But the thing is, I personally don't really care about Draco Malfoy. This is the funny part. I actually am kind of touchy on the whole Harry Potter franchise because I was just like, I was born in 81, so whenever the books started coming out, I was already going to college. Um, they might have come out whenever I was in late high school, but I started reading them when I was in college. So I never really bonded super deep with these characters, and so to me, the idea that someone's experiencing the same reality as either Draco Malfoy or a person analogous to Draco Malfoy is simply interesting. I don't have a lot of investment into this character either way. Um, and so I find it really amusing that a lot of people are very invested in the Draco Malfoy experience. Um, I'm a bit more of a neutral perspective on this. It kind of helps that since I'm a trans man and J.K. Rowling has been absolute, just utter garbage to trans people, like, it would help if she just said anything nice and actually, like, made a commitment anywhere towards showing that she thinks trans people are real human beings who don't deserve the kind of treatment that she's causing them to receive. Then I would feel a lot better about the Harry Potter franchise, and maybe I'd feel a lot more invested in Draco Malfoy. But because I'm trans, I'm also kind of like, hey, I'm gonna come in like a wrecking ball. Um, so I'm as unbiased, I guess, as neutral as you could get here because I am not a super fan. In fact, because of my experience of reality as a trans person, it's really hard for me to be in the headspace of a Harry Potter superfan right now. So, when it comes to whether I believe Draco Malfoy exists in another reality, um, jury's out. My my hunch, like what I think would happen, my prediction is that if there is an analogous experience that is being had to Draco Malfoy, it's probably people who are similar to Draco Malfoy who would think or have experiences like Draco Malfoy who may be like pretty far back in time. Like, especially if you could have a dream of someone 100 years or a couple hundred years in the past, you could probably have a lot of very interesting Draco Malfoy like experiences. In fact, one of the reasons why I want to do this is because I want to explore whether or not that's a possibility. Because if it is, I would like people to know that, like, hey, you've been having this experience that you say is Draco Malfoy's. Have you considered that you're actually having the real experience of somebody in the past? Because if so, while you're doing that, could you get some data? So, as as a person who wants to explore more of human psychic ability, I find these questions very interesting, and I want to explore them in as scientific a manner as can be done, considering that data gathering is garbage in this instance. Um, and like, let's talk about whether I believe that dreaming is just as real as this reality, or whether I believe that reality shifting is just as real as this reality, because this group of questions was kind of general in a sense. Like, do you think it's just as real as this reality? That could be referring to reality shifting, or it could be referring to dreaming. So I kind of want to just like talk about both of these. So, first of all, I want to address something, which is that some people and spiritualities believe that life is a dream, that reality actually is a dreaming experience all the time, and that when we go to sleep, we just dream differently. And that's a very interesting perspective of reality. I don't have that belief system myself, but I definitely think that is a very interesting it's a very interesting theory to try to apply to our experience of reality, because the way that the subconscious works, the way that we process visual input, the way that we actually filter reality itself, all of these things are actually very dreamlike in nature. But in conscious reality, we experience logical thought and logical processing that puts everything in order sequentially. And so we experience time in the way that humans define it. But the subconscious does not actually subscribe to the Time newsletter. It doesn't subscribe to Time magazine, and it doesn't actually experience reality in order, in chronological order, as it were. It doesn't experience things one at a time. It doesn't experience cause and effect the same way. The subconscious is in a different part of the brain than actually processes this time stuff. So because of that, the subconscious acts in a way that is illogical to the conscious brain, and it acts like a time traveler. I said earlier that you can have reality shifting experiences if you take certain substances or go through certain events. You can go through shock. You can be electrically shocked. You can do both if you get shocked hard enough. And that in itself can drive a reality altering experience. You can accidentally be poisoned. You can get food poisoning. You can go through extreme pain, and all of these will cause a reality altering experience. They can sometimes alter reality to the point that you're experiencing what like doctors would call full-on psychosis, as in perceiving something totally different than anyone around you would say physically happened. Kind of getting into the realm that, like, if you've seen the movie Contact, whenever they use the reality shifting device, they basically get like 14 hours of static on the video, and there's no video data of the entire experience that the woman who goes into a different reality completely immersively experiences. But they do have 14 hours worth of static whenever everybody else around her perceived only a second going by. So there's some evidence that something happened in the movie. That's a nice thing, that they actually have some physical evidence of it. We don't usually get as lucky here with our dream experiences. So, having a different experience of time than somebody else who's observing in the same physical area is one of the places where people experience a reality shift, whether or not they actually experienced a completely different physical reality that is elsewhere, possibly just physically elsewhere in the same universe. I don't know how you measure that yet. It depends on what's going on. One of the things is that we have yet to really have a lot of repeatable phenomena in this category to where it can be consistently measured. One of the things that I've been researching is there any scientific proof of psychic ability? And the depressing part is that for 50 years, I'm telling the truth, I will do a whole video just on this separately. For 50 years, the parapsychology departments of universities were doing experiments, like from the 1900s to the 1950s or 1960s or so. They were doing experiments like using those cards, the Zener cards that you see in Ghostbusters with the star and a square and wavy lines. They were doing all those experiments. Well, the way they conducted the experiments for 50 years was not consistent enough with each other to be able to have the data actually prove any hypothesis whatsoever. And it's because they were just testing for general psychic ability. The only hypothesis that can be proved with the data. They do actually have what you would consider proof in quotations. The problem I say proof in quotations is enough data is there to suggest that some kind of extrasensory perception ability does exist in humanity. And that's it. We don't know whether it's telepathy, whether it's telekinesis, whether it's precognition, whether it's clairvoyance, whether it's like all of those things I described are different things and they work completely differently theoretically. We don't know how any of it works because all the data was garbage. And This comes down to, how do you test these abilities? How do you actually make sure that you are testing the same ability each time? How do you make sure that two different humans are using the same ability whenever they report back similar results? Do you know whether it is that they actually saw something that was somewhere else in the room, or if they communicated with their future self who found out later what that thing was after the experiment? And the two are totally different. And the reason it's extremely important is because, like, the government was funding a lot of this data, and the only reason that the government is going to fund data like that is to do espionage. So it's really important, if you use this data in real life, to be able to figure out where it came from. If you can't use the data for anything important, then no one's going to fund it. And that's basically what happened. They got tired of parapsychologists not being able to really prove whether or not anybody was able to do anything useful. And sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but that kind of data, like the amount of data that you need to even apply the quantitative analysis to figure out whether or not the statistics are significant, is a massive amount of data. I will not be able to collect that much data on my own. Like just having experiences, just doing experiments on my own with reality shifting, I would not be able to collect enough data to be able to hold up to this math in a meaningful, significant way. From a quantitative analysis point of view, which was basically the means that they were testing the data, like, last century for psychic stuff. So the reason why they were using that scale of data, so many people, so many different experiments, and testing against all these different controls and stuff, is because they were trying to eliminate anything that might not be psychic human ability or that person's ability, and make sure to eliminate, of course, any like type of cheating that might be possible. And they were so focused on that they were never really proving a hypothesis. They were never really testing the ability. They were not thinking from the point of view of the ability. They were only thinking from the point of view of, how do we eliminate fraud? And I think that if someone manages to prove this, then you're not going to need to worry about eliminating fraud. They're going to come up with something that's just revolutionary enough that it won't matter. It's not about proving psychic ability. I think a lot of people are really stuck on proof. What my perspective is that we need to find something valuable for the rest of humanity so they can do things with it. If they're able to do things with it, that proves it's real. So it's not about proving it's real from the get-go. Proving something is real is actually rather more of a philosophical exercise than it is an experiment, you'll find. The first thing you're going to have to do is define reality, and then you're going to dive down a semantics rabbit hole, and it's going to suck. So, I want to talk about why dreams, in particular, are a good way of gathering data on other realities. I think that a lot of people don't understand that dreams are real data. Like, that's memories you have in your head of something. It's an experience. When you dream, your brain actually uses that time to process memories. That means that sometimes you can have memories of your past that you re-experience just as if they were real. And sometimes you'll experience memories from your past just as if they were real, but it'll be slightly different. Why that happened is a good question. Was it an alternate reality, or was it simply your subconscious trying to do its own experiment to see what would happen if that reality had been different, if that experience had been different? We need a lot more experimentation before we could ever really answer the question one way or the other. But dreams process memories. The thing about memories is that, so like I said, time isn't really a thing for the subconscious. Everything is just data. So if it's possible that we experience all time all at once, and the subconscious is doing the job for us of filtering the experience so that the conscious feels like it is experiencing reality a moment at a time. It is experiencing linear time. Linear time is basically an experience that is catered and tailored for us by the subconscious that knows everything. That means the subconscious is going to be filtering out dream memories that you shouldn't be having yet. You could have dreamed about the future, but the subconscious is like, oh, that's a future memory. You shouldn't be accessing that yet, so you're just going to forget it when you wake up. And I think that's why most people have trouble remembering dreams, have trouble remembering dreams the entire dream, or they just have times where they just can't remember dreams. The subconscious decided that you shouldn't have that yet. And the reason is because awake people tend to freak out if they know about things ahead of time. Waking minds are very confused by any experience that is not orderly linear time. I have experienced some waking reality that was not in order and was not linear, and I can tell you that my mind was very confused and it was almost impossible to deal with reality. And that was due to having there was an environmental factor that caused that to happen, and that's not going to happen anymore. That's whenever we had a big methane leak in my house. That's a reality altering event. So the thing is, my memories of certain time periods during that event, I don't remember things in linear order. The only way I even know that those parts of my memories aren't in linear order is because I was able to corroborate with somebody else who was able to verify that I, in fact, was not experiencing reality in order. That I was essentially... I had an entire conversation with them where I said the things that I would say at the end of the conversation in the beginning, and said the things that I would say at the beginning of the conversation at the end. So I had the whole conversation backwards with them. We don't really know how that's possible, but I did it. And I remember this as if they were talking backwards, because I experienced reality the other way. My memories will always be that way. I was expecting them to actually correct. I was expecting my memories to kind of process and reorder themselves. But the thing is, because the other person was going in a different direction in reality, according to common memory, if my memory tries to reorder those memories to be in order, the other person is still talking in the other direction, according to my memory. So, your memories themselves will carry data with them about how time happened, about how reality is being perceived at the time. And that data will stay there. They will not just blend to match the rest of your memories. This means that whenever you're looking through your memories for data, you can actually find reality shifting experiences really easily, because they're going to be the memories that, I'm not going to say stick out, but if there's a whole bunch of memories that you have that are I'm really not sure what happened there and I don't want to think about it again, those are the memories that you get to examine for reality shifting experiences. I find that a lot of this is about examining your experience of reality and continuing to ask questions about it, and really just allowing for the fact that more may be happening than you realize. So, I want to get into final thoughts, that this is kind of going a lot of places. I want to talk about why I'm so cautious about jumping into Draco Malfoy, even though I don't know if Draco Malfoy is real. And I want to state that. Literally, I know for a fact, I do not know if Draco Malfoy is real. The reason I am going forward with caution, in this case, I said that until I have hot water back in my house, I'm not gonna jump into Draco Malfoy because I want to be able to take a shower afterward. And the honest truth is that I know enough about Draco Malfoy as a character. I have read all 7 books. I watched a lot of the movies. I got tired of them, so I didn't watch them all. And I know that there's quite a lot of events that Draco Malfoy has experienced that are not great to experience. So, first of all, just there's some stuff he went through in the books that doesn't look great. Even just like those literal written bits that we know for a fact that the character Draco Malfoy went through because it's in the literary canon, as it were. So just even experiencing those will not be great. The second thing is that for most of the time period that we know of him in the Harry Potter universe, he's basically a magic Nazi. So, like, because a Death Eater is a Nazi, all right? If she could have just said Nazi in a kid's book, I think she would have. So, like, Draco Malfoy is a Nazi. If I have a dream in which I am a Nazi, believing in Nazi beliefs, going around in my Nazi way, and I wake up, I'm going to want to take a shower, because I think that's disgusting. So, it doesn't matter if it was real. The whole point of dreams is that you have an immersive experience, like, you know, the best VR ever, or the Star Trek holodeck or whatever, and you don't know whether it's reality or not. While you're asleep, you think that it actually is reality. You wake up and you find out that that was all a dream. The entire point of, oh, it was all a dream, is because while you're dreaming, you don't know you're dreaming, unless you're having, like, you know, lucid dreams or something. But lucid dreams and reality shifting are not the same thing. You can have an experience of a reality shift without having lucid dreaming. So you won't know that you're dreaming at the time. You'll just be completely... In fact, if you're not completely immersed in the world of being Draco Malfoy, I don't think you're experiencing the full reality shift. I think you're doing more of a... like, almost a very, very, very distant remote viewing. Because you're still keeping that perspective of being you. For me, a full reality shift is whenever you don't experience being you anymore. So I would be experiencing being Draco Malfoy. I'm not saying that Draco Malfoy completely has a totally horrible experience all the time, but I'm saying that I'd probably have a lot to process. Even if it was just a dream, that's a different reality. It's going to be a lot to process. I don't feel like doing that right now. And another thing is that we've talked about dreams and everything, but nightmares are dreams. So there's quite a possibility that I could aim for Draco Malfoy and end up experiencing some nightmares. And again, I don't want to go through nightmares right now about, like, being some weird Nazi punk and then getting interrogated by a Dementor. That's something that can wait. Now, I think that a lot of people have forgotten what the real Draco Malfoy was like, because a lot of people have been, like, you know, very idolizing of the character and saying that he does all these fantastic and awesome and noble things and has all this amazing gay sex, I guess. Or, you know, it depends on which part of the fandom you're in, whether or not the sex is gay. But, like, I'm going by the text here. And, I mean, even if nothing bad happened to Draco Malfoy and I just stood in the lobby of the Slytherin, like, house, you know, the little dungeon with nice rugs, I would have to be around Crabbe and Goyle, because those are his 2 henchmen that are hanging out around him all the time. And at the very least, I would have to smell them. And to me, that's a horrible prospect. I refuse to do this until I have the proper means of preparation. It's a nightmare. A total nightmare. Now, I will probably try some reality shifting before this, where I try for a different character. And that's why I want to talk about why I'm cautious about shifting into Draco Malfoy right now. Even though I don't know if he's real or his experience is real. but I think that there's some other possibilities. So let me talk about what I might try next. I haven't thought of an actual character that's a human person that I would want to shift into for some reason. Take that how you will when it comes to my imagination. So for some reason, the first character I thought of shifting into was Roger Rabbit from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, the animation. He's a cartoon rabbit. So think of the benefits. Because I was like, what can I shift into that would be like a lot of fun that doesn't really have a whole lot of risk attached. Um, and with Roger Rabbit, you're a cartoon character who lives in a place called Toontown where real people can enter, and you can also go into the real world as well. So you don't experience pain, not like real pain like humans experience. You just kind of experience like animated contortions and stuff, and then you just go on with your life like nothing happened. He can get squashed into a wall, he can get run over, whatever. Nothing happens. He has a cool wife, lives in Toontown. There's so much room to experiment and explore. Now the thing is, if I did Roger Rabbit, there's very few places I think in this reality, if any, that could be analogous to Toontown. If I were the only way that I could be experiencing something that someone else was actually experiencing in physical reality is if somehow they were in a VR headset and I was dreaming in them while they were in a VR headset or playing a video game or something, or if they were going to like say a Disney theme park that has Toontown in it. And so that's so many layers to pick apart, and I think is a little bit hard to test with. So I don't think Roger Rabbit would be a good test, but thinking in that direction, something that is more possible but still fictional character. I might try Fiverr from Watership Down. Fiverr in Watership Down is a rabbit who is a real rabbit, and Watership Down is actually written about a real place in like the British countryside with real rabbits, and it's kind of like all of the rabbits that were kind of just based on rabbit behavior and actual rabbit stuff. So it's quite possible that I could experience an actual rabbit's experience somewhere in this world or another reality or whatever, and have a dream as Fiverr from Watership Down. And I think that might be another like an interesting place to go. Um, I may just try for something completely non-fictional and try for a historical figure at some point, because that is more within the realms of something that we can test at least. But again, it's really hard to test this out because it's hard to produce a theoretical reality that a dreamer or a person just sitting there and using their mind, it's hard to figure out a reality that I can get data from, that no one else can get data from, that we could then somehow verify the data. And it's hard to it's running into the same wall as the parapsychology departments were running into when it came to psychic testing. Would I be testing out my ability to fetch data from other reality experiences, or would I be testing out my ability to fetch my own memories from the future of what it ends up being like? Am I just precognitive with myself? So, I think it's going to take a lot of thought to actually produce a reality experiment that gets meaningful results that someone could actually really use to apply the like real questions to. But I don't think it's impossible. I just think that more thought needs to be applied to this. And I still think that the Draco Malfoy experiment will be interesting. Unfortunately, it's going to be in the future. It's just going to take some time for hot water to get returned to this house and for me to be in a place where I can really run that experiment in the way that I want to run it. But when that time comes, I will report back with whatever data I can get. And before then, I will probably come up with like a good test case for reality shifting. I've had my own experiments that, or not experiments, but experiences that were basically like they happened on their own. I just happened to dream something that ended up happening later on, and that happened a lot. Sometimes I've had dreams of realities that other people have experienced that I found out later from them was the case. Um, and so I've had these impromptu experiences that have told me that maybe this is possible, and enough. Um, they give me enough to say, "Hey, I want to try experimenting with this and seeing what it is that we can find out." But again, do I believe that these were definitely this thing or this thing or this thing? No, because I don't think it's a very good way to know things. I really am more of a logic based thinker, and I don't find belief based thought to be very satisfying for myself. That's just why I do it like that. I don't really come from a place of judging other people's beliefs, is the thing. I know that it seems silly that some people might believe that they had a dream as Draco Malfoy and it was real, but I don't find that to be a reason to judge anything about them, because there's no real information that you can get from that. So again, like, I base so much on logic. So anyway, wrapping this up. If you have any thoughts, go ahead and comment. If you like this, give it a like. If you want to see more of my journey, eventually jumping into Draco Malfoy and finding out whatever it is that you find out when you do that, then subscribe, and see you in the future. Bye.